All right, hello, and welcome to the TheVibeSpace. With the snowballing growth of technology, especially services such as AI and the cloud, we feel here at the TheVibeSpace that a wave of general knowledge and safe practice regarding these subjects is incredibly critical at this moment in time. So today, that's what we're going to do. Okay, so why does this matter? First of all, technology connects and empowers us worldwide, but it also greatly exposes us much more than we would often realize. Many people posting medical information and other information they wouldn't realize is actually sensitive. Next, cyber attacks are on the rise, targeting both individuals and organizations at a higher rate than ever seen before. And finally, just a few smart habits can protect your identity, data, and even in extreme cases, your physical health. Now let's get a quick refresher on some technology basics. First off, you have devices, smartphones, tablets, PCs, printers, nowadays even smart fridges, all considered general IoT or Internet of Things smart devices. These are segmented differently in the way they are forensically cracked into, for example, with smartphones and tablets often being grouped together and separately from PCs due to OS difference. This follows through with networks due to the difference in networks, Wi-Fi, physical LAN, VPN, and several other operational internet networks for different purposes. Next, we have storage devices, the very popular and growing cloud, a stationary storage that as long as you have internet access on an IoT device, you usually have access to this cloud storage. Then you have hard drives. This was the most popular storage for a very long time, but we've seen a transition into solid state drives, which hold a much higher capacity and much higher speeds with transitioning the data within them. This applies as well to USB or mobile storage device, allowing the ability to plug, absorb the data, and transport that data to another system. But an upgrade has happened here as well between 2.0 and 3.0, enabling much higher storage amounts and higher storage transfer speeds. And finally, we have software, general IoT devices operating with apps, operating systems being the heart and mind behind just about every single general IoT device, and being able to now use a browser on anything up to about a fridge. All right? All right, so when it comes to general IoT devices, they are observed and mapped out on what is called a network diagram. Now, we are transitioning from firewall focus within the network diagram to what is called a zero trust focus, and we'll touch on both of these things briefly. First of all, what is a network diagram? This is a visual map of how all of the devices and systems connect and communicate with each other. As you can tell here on the visual example, this would otherwise be icons of the server, the firewall, a laptop, a printer, for example, and it would show you how and when and where they all communicate, any possible entry points, for example. And that's kind of, we're a little bit ahead of ourselves on why it matters, but that's really why it matters, so that you can see that communication, so that you can see possible entry points, and you can understand how things are truly flowing in your system. Now, to touch on zero trust, traditionally firewalls focused on a perimeter defense style. The entryway to this network system is the firewall. It is a separation from the entire network and the internet source. That is where the firewall lies. But we are transitioning from that into what is called a zero trust system. This system assumes that threats can be internal or external and that nothing is trusted by default. Users, devices, and apps must authenticate via two-factor authentication, for example, and continuously be verified. This is much safer due to the onslaught of not only consistent attacks, but various styles of attacks that find many entry styles beyond the firewall or through the firewall around it. People get creative. Nefarious forces get very creative. All right? All right, so let's discuss some common cyber threats. First of all, beginning with malware. This is malicious software such as a virus or spyware, oftentimes either attacking the system as soon as it gets in or lying in wait, picking information over the long term and planning for a destructive long term attack. Next, you have phishing. This is a fake email or text trying to steal your information, and it oftentimes does include malware. Next, you have data breaches. This is when a hacker is accessing personal data from a company and oftentimes can be an individual or an organization attacking another organization. Next, you have ransomware. This is when a nefarious force locks your data until you pay up, oftentimes in Bitcoin. And finally, we have social engineering. This is the most destructive and recent form of attack. This is where you trick people into giving away sensitive information. We can think of fake calls, asking certain social engineering questions within the workplace. There are several aspects to this, and it is really a very espionage subject, and it's a very difficult and critical subject being tackled within the cybersecurity environment. Okay? All right, so when it comes to protecting yourself with email and phishing, look out for misspelled addresses and urgent language. This urgent language is, of course, buy now, click now, get this discount now. It's obvious, but previously these were advertising concepts, and whether we like it or not, people do oftentimes fall for advertising concepts. So taking that second thought when seeing that urgent language, taking a second look at the email advertisement, whatever this piece of information sent to you may be, that second look is critical now more than ever. It's also a good idea to hover over links and preview the URL. There is a way to trim the link, make it look clean, and make it look like an official website link. But if you hover it, you will see an extended amount of data, and oftentimes that will reveal to you if that is a nefarious link or not. Do not download unexpected attachments, especially if you've followed the last couple steps and any red flags have appeared at all. You don't want to download attachments that come with that advertisement, that email, that URL. And of course, report suspicious emails. There is such a heavy onslaught of email phishing. As much help as possible is needed to be able to put a dent in this wave, or to at least show that people are wising up and applying their own personal restrictions and their own personal safeties to these events. All right? Now, we mentioned social engineering previously, but let's go ahead and dive into it a little bit closer. This is cybercrime that targets human psychology, not technology. For a few examples, tech support phone calls that are not real, fake social media messages from friends, but it's not actually your friend. It might be a duplicate of their profile. And finally, delivery rescheduling scams. I think these have been so consistent that a majority of people have seen an Amazon delivery that they did not order, that they have to check in on. And even USPS has largely been used to scam people. Double check everything. And finally, aim to get passwords, security answers, or direct access. That is their aim. In the conversation, these are the pieces of information they're trying to get. They may ask you 3 or 4 questions to get you to redirect down a conversational path that eventually reveals something about, say, your high school mascot, for example. This is the concept of social engineering. It's a psychological battle, and it requires consistent awareness, consistent observation, and consistent carefulness with the way you discuss with strangers, anyone on the phone, and anyone online. All right, so let's discuss some social media privacy techniques. We've already mentioned how people unintentionally release medical and location information on their social media. It is definitely recommended to do everything you can to avoid doing this. If you are going to do this, or for example, set your address and graduating high school in your profile, it's not a bad thing to be confident and proud of these things, but it is a bad thing if you're not following the correct privacy practice. So Set your accounts to private. Don't overshare personal life or travel plans. Don't give that nefarious actor what location you're going to be at, therefore what network you're going to be on, etc., etc. Reject friend requests from people you don't know. This obviously doesn't apply to creatives or growing brands, but when it comes to your inner circle and personal profiles, you want to have as much of a human touch as possible, possibly having that interaction with the individual first, getting that verbal confirmation. This profile picture will be me with this color t-shirt. It will be this vehicle. It will be this landmark. There are so many duplicates and so much of this espionage, social engineering consistently going on, and at a higher rate on social media, these practices are more important than ever. And due to these cyber crimes, these platforms that we are using are being very highly active in their response to these attacks, enabling us with very useful privacy tools on our profile, such as setting the profile to private, but there are an extended amount of other useful tools, such as activating two-factor authentication, for example, which immediately doubles, if not triples, the security of your account. All right? Now, of course, this is fairly general knowledge, but never answer these questions online. Any questions that require your first pet's name, your mother's maiden name, your favorite teacher, birth city, high school mascot, and it's critical to get into sort of the mind of this thinking. What sort of information are they looking for? Why? And what kind of questions would you ask per se to access this information is a really good way to kind of retroflect, if that's a word, what is occurring in the situation. Obviously, if anybody's really trying to access a majority of any style of information from you, especially if you don't know them, right off the bat, it's very likely a nefarious actor. All right, so now we're going to discuss some password safety practice. First of all, use long, unique passwords for each account. Do not carry the same password across accounts. This is incredibly insecure, as if someone accesses one account, they can access every other account that you have, and that could lead into your banking accounts. All right? Of course, use two-factor authentication. This is the most secure mechanism that we have for passwords and accounts right now, and it doubles, if not triples, the security of your account. Of course, do not reuse or recycle any old passwords. There are chances that a nefarious actor has already accessed an account in the past, but has lied dormant in wait. And if you carry that password with you, you sometimes carry a nefarious actor with you as well. All right? Now, something that would simplify this entire process and decrease the amount of time it takes to get into your accounts would be to use something like a password manager, such as Bitwarden or 1Password, for example. All right. We're going to discuss the Flipper Zero and some hacker tools. First of all, the Flipper Zero looks like a toy, but it is by far not one. It can clone RFID chips or the chip in your credit card. It emulates remote controls. It can disrupt Bluetooth, tamper with access cards, smart devices, and even medical devices such as pacemakers. Possession is legal, but misuse can be criminal. Obviously, I want to touch on the scenario that Pirate Software first mentioned, being you're just playing with a Flipper Zero and you think you're funny because you shut off a couple TVs. You may not realize you also shut off someone's pacemaker. That is beyond federal misuse charge of technology and into manslaughter. All right? Card skimmers are installed on ATMs and gas pumps, for example, and they steal your card data. They duplicate it during the transaction. Keyloggers record your keystrokes to steal logins. Usually card skimmers will also include a keylogger so that they capture the stripe of your card and the account password so that they have as much open use of your card as you would. they basically now own your card. Then you have, for example, a Wi-Fi pineapple. This mimics public Wi-Fi, but it steals your data. This is why it's honestly important to try to not use public Wi-Fi. It will be the same exact name. You think you're using a public place's Wi-Fi, for example, McDonald's, but you're not. You're using somebody's Wi-Fi in some van in the parking lot. All right? And then you have something that many people have probably heard of due to movies, media, video games, etc., being signal jammers. This blocks cell, Wi-Fi, GPS signal, and they are very illegal to use in public. Extreme federal charges for misuse or use of a majority of these things. If you ever approach Flipper Zero, Hacker Tools, you want to do that with as much sensitivity, awareness, and observation of your local law, honestly, as much as you can. It is very interesting, but it's something to be careful with and honestly spread awareness about. All right? Now we're going to discuss the miracle save of backups and recovery. It's recommended to regularly back up your files to the cloud and to physical drives, creating copies of your most critical and important work, for example. This can be helpful not only against nefarious actors, but also just against a crash, a system meltdown, a scenario where you have to get a completely new device even. Having these cloud backups, physical drive backups, they are life-saving events. Automating your backup process can also make things much easier. It's not necessary, but it is incredibly helpful, and it can prevent you from forgetting to back up your files and then say, instead of forgetting for 2 weeks and then losing everything from the last week, you get to remember that you set an automation process and swipe the sweat off your forehead, take a breath of relief, your work is still there. Next, test your restore process regularly. A restore process is different than a reset process. This is restoring to an established version that you have previously set. Testing that restore process, making sure it's up to date, making sure that you're restoring to the state that you want to is critical. And in case of an attack, you want to do everything you can to isolate the attack, isolate your private information, scan your system, and restore things as soon as possible. All right? Okay, so let's run over a quick cybersecurity checklist. First of all, use strong and unique passwords, two-factor authentication on every single account, avoid oversharing, watch for phishing, be cautious on any public Wi-Fi, stay up to date, back up your data, and avoid public misuse of tech tools, please. These are some very great resources for information regarding the subjects mentioned. First of all, beginning with staysafeonline.org. Second of all, if you want to check if your personal information has been accessed or breached, you can enter that personal information, for example, your email, on haveibeenpwned.com. This will tell you if your private information has been breached. And of course, you have CISA.gov or CISA.gov. The CISA and staysafeonline.org will both give you a lot of information about how to protect your private data, as well as what cybersecurity and IT systems we are working with. All right. And for some final closing thoughts, your mind is the best firewall. The way that you think, observe, and operate in your cyber environment is critical to what happens to your data. And following the best practice, staying up to date as often as possible if you're going to be using this technology is becoming more important day by day. Stay curious, but stay cautious, and please stay secure. Thank you.